Hello and a very good everyone. So today we will learn on how we can actually do data automation using in Excel report. What we do have here is we do have a folder named student enrollment. So in this particular folder, we do have the student intakes and student names, their details and so on. So just let me open this file. So when I open this file, I have the student names and of course the student respective courses, like what course they join, program, intake, student status, student ID, and what is their sponsorship, whether they are a scholarship student or they are relying on government loan. So now this is the details. What I want to do is I want to know the number of student intake for the respective year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Excel file. Okay, so in the new Excel file, I'm going to use Power Query to import the data. So basically, Power Query plays a tool where it can perform ETL, extract, transform, and load. So I'm going to go to data and get data. So over here, I'm going to choose file. I'm not going to choose Excel workbook. Why? Because Excel workbook is importing the particular Excel file. I want to import from a folder. So I select folder. A box will appear, and then in that particular box you need to choose what is your folder. So I save my folder in desktop, and apparently I save over here. I don't click here. I need to actually click to this folder. The thing is, you don't have to double click. You need to actually one click the folder, click one time, and then you press open. Once you press open, another box will appear. So they will show you the file that resided inside this folder. So we have like student enrollment 2017, what is the file, and so on. So I want to actually combine and load to, because if you press combine and transform, what happen is it will actually go to Power Query. But when I press combine and load to, you can actually choose what type of format you want to load to. So apparently this is the details that I want to actually load to, whereby I have the name, I have the course, the product, the intake. I want to see the intake and how many students per intake. So I'm going to press OK. So once I press OK, what happen is you will notice that eventually a box will appear. So they will access whether you want in the form of pivot chart and so on. So just say in this case you want to choose pivot chart and you press OK. So once you press pivot chart, of course we have a pivot table and pivot chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the intake at the axis. So what you'll have is 2017 as the row labels, and then I will just put the name at the values. So in this case, we notice that for 2017 we have about 246 students, and then let me just right click and then I hide all field so that our chart looks bigger. And I don't want the legend, so unselect the legend, unselect the grid line, and put the data label. So apparently what you notice is we do have the student intake for this 2017. What I'm going to do is I want to create just say a VBA code. Okay, so just say I can do my automation. So I go to developer and I go to Visual Basic. You can press alternate F11. I'm going to use my mouse and click Visual Basic. So what I'm going to do is insert module. So in this case, I'll use a code whereby SUB, and this one will be refresh. So every time whenever there is a new details being added, I just can click on the code, it will be refreshed. So you need to know, okay, I'm going to put here dim ABC as pivot table. So this one, there's no S, but you have to make sure that pivot table got 2T. Okay, so what is basically means is this dim is basically a dimension. What is dimension? Basically we are declaring ABC as a pivot table. The word ABC, we treat it like whenever there's a ABC in this particular code, it is actually a pivot table. But then we need to set the ABC. If you look carefully, where is our file? It's under a student enrollment. And what is this name of the pivot table? The name of this pivot table is pivot table 1 student enrollment. So what I need to do is I need to copy this particular worksheet name. Why? Because we need to set ABC, or we call set ABC equals sheets. So we set the ABC to be the pivot table of student enrollment sheet. So I'm going to put here pivot tables. So make sure got 2T and S. And what pivot table is that? Wait, let me just copy this. It's pivot table 1. Copy this and then paste it over here. Okay, and then after that ABC refresh, and then you just press start. If just say there's an error means if just say I never put here S. So I just say I press here start, you will notice there'll be an error. So that is why you need to make sure that here you have the S And the pivot table is also very important. If you just say you don't have the S, you press start, will have error. Okay, why got error? Because you see here got error. So you must make sure that your pivot table here must have S. Why? Because basically pivot tables, what we are doing, okay, if here dimension deem ABC as pivot table, we are declaring ABC as a pivot table. But this thing over here, what is set? Set, it means we are setting the ABC to be the pivot table 1 of student enrollment sheet. So what does it mean? It means the ABC is pivot table 1, which is located in student enrollment worksheet. Okay, so if you notice, I put a single apostrophe. Single apostrophe is where you can explain things, because sometimes coding is not easy to understand. So you can actually put an apostrophe here, and automatically when you press enter, it becomes like an explanation and it will turn in green color. So now we declare ABC to be a pivot table, and we tell to this VBA code that the ABC basically should be the student enrollment worksheet pivot table 1, because over here we have only one pivot table 1 student enrollment worksheet. And then what to do is we need to refresh the pivot table. So now if just say, when you just say you press start, okay, automatically it looks good. So what is the purpose is, right now when I go to insert, I click here shape, okay, and I put here just say refresh, make it middle. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is right click, assign macro. So the name of the macro is VBA is refresh. So what I'll do is I'll just click over here, it will automate. But now you see no changes. But when just say I go to my file, okay, I select the 2019, 2018, 2020, I put it inside over here. Now when I go to my Excel file and I click refresh, you will notice there are updates, your pivot table and also your chart changes.